The complete works of Swami Vivekananda, lecture delivered by Swami Vivekananda at the Shakespeare Hall, California in 1900, Part 3. The book is full of hundreds of beautiful episodes like this. I began by telling you that the Mahabharata is one of the greatest books in the world and consists of 100,000 verses in 18 prabandhs or volumes. To return to our main story, we left the Pandav brothers in exile. Even there, they were not allowed to remain unmolested from the evil plots of Duryodhana, but all of them were futile. A story of their forest life I shall tell you here. One day the brothers became thirsty in the forest. Yudhisthira bade his brother Nakul to go and fetch water. He quickly proceeded towards the place where there was water and soon came to a crystal lake and was about to drink of it when he heard a voice utter these words: "Stop, O child, first answer my questions and then drink of this water." But Nakul, who was exceedingly thirsty, disregarded these words, drank of the water, and having drunk of it, dropped down dead. As Nakul did not return, King Yudhisthira told Sahadev to seek his brother and bring back the water with him. So Sahadev proceeded to the lake and beheld his brother lying dead. Afflicted at the death of his brother and suffering severely from thirst, he went towards the water. When the same words were heard by him, "O child, first answer my questions and then drink of the water," he also disregarded these words and, having satisfied his thirst, dropped down dead. Subsequently, Arjun and Bhim were sent, one after another, on a similar quest, but neither returned, having drunk of the lake and dropped down dead. Then Yudhishthira rose up to go in search of his brothers. At length, he came to the beautiful lake and saw his brothers lying dead. His heart was full of grief at the sight, and he began to lament. Suddenly he heard the same voice saying, "Do not, O child, act rashly. I am a yaksh, living as a crane on tiny fish. It is by me that thy brothers have been brought under the sway of the Lord of the departed spirits. If thou, O prince, answer not my questions put to me, even thou shalt number the fifth corpse. Having answered my questions first, do thou, O Kunti's son, drink and carry away as much as thou requires." Yudhishthira replied, "I shall answer thy questions according to my intelligence. Do thou ask me." The Yaksh then asked him several questions, all of which Yudhishthira answered satisfactorily. One of the questions asked was, "What is the most wonderful fact in this world?" We see our fellow beings every moment falling off around us, but those that are left behind think that they will never die. This is the most curious fact. In the face of death, none believes that he will die. Another question asked was, "What is the path of knowing the secret of religion?" And Yudhishthira answered, "By argument nothing can be settled. Doctrines there are many. Various are the scriptures, one part contradicting the other. There are not two sages who do not differ in their opinions. The secret of religion is buried deep, as it were, in dark caves. So the path to be followed is that which the great ones have trodden." Then the Yaksha said, "I am pleased. I am Dharma, he god of justice in the form of the crane. I came to test you. Now your brothers, see, not one of them is dead. It is all my magic. Since abstention from injury is regarded by thee as higher than both profit and pleasure, therefore let all thy brothers live, O bull of the Bharat race." And at these words of the Yaksha, the Pandavas rose up. Here is a glimpse of the nature of King Yudhishthira. We find by his answer that he was more of a philosopher, more of a yogi than a king. Now, as the 13th year of exile was drawing to a close, the Yaksha bade them go to Virat's kingdom and live there in such disguises as they would think best. So, after the 12 years of exile had expired, they went to the kingdom of Virat in different disguises to spend the remaining 1 year in concealment and entered into menial service in the king's household. Thus, Yudhishthira became a Brahman courtier of the king. As one skilled in dice, Bhima was appointed a cook. Arjuna, dressed as a eunuch, was made a teacher of dancing and music to Uttara, the princess, and remained in the inner apartments of the king. Nakula became the keeper of the king's horses, and Sahadev got the charge of the cows. And Draupadi, disguised as a waiting woman, was also admitted into the queen's household. Thus, concealing their identity, the Pandav brothers safely spent a year, and the search of Duryodhana to find them out was of no avail. They were only discovered just when the year was out. Then Yudhishthira sent an ambassador to Dhritarashtra and demanded that half of the kingdom should, as their share, be restored to them. But Duryodhana hated his cousins and would not consent to their legitimate demands. They were even willing to accept a single province, nay, even 5 villages. But the headstrong Duryodhana declared that he would not yield without fight even as much land as a needle's point would hold. Dhritarashtra pleaded again and again for peace, but all went in vain. Krishna also went and tried to avert the impending war and death of kinsmen. So did the wise elders of the royal court, but all negotiations for a peaceful partition of the kingdom were futile. So at last preparations were made on both sides for war, and all the warlike nations took part in it. The old Indian customs of the Kshatriyas were observed in it. Duryodhana took one side, Yudhishthira the other. From Yudhishthira's messengers were at once sent to all the surrounding kings, entreating their alliance, since honorable men would grant the request that first reached them. So warriors from all parts assembled to espouse the cause of either the Pandavas or the Kurus, according to the precedents of their requests. And thus one brother joined this side and the other that side, the father on one side and the son on the other. The most curious thing was the code of war in those days. As soon as the battle for the day ceased and evening came, the opposing parties were good friends, even going to each other's tents. However, when the morning came, again they proceeded to fight each other. This was the strange trait that the Hindus carried down till the time of the Mohammedan invasion. Then again, a man on horseback must not strike on one on foot, must not poison the weapon, must not vanquish the enemy in any unequal fight or by dishonesty, and must never take undue advantage of another, and so on. If any deviated from these rules, he would be covered with dishonor and be shunned. The Kshatriyas were trained in that way. And when the foreign invasion came from the Central Asia, the Hindus treated the invaders in the same manner. They defeated them several times and on as many occasions sent them back to their homes with presents, etc. The code laid down was that they must not usurp anybody's country, and when a man was beaten, he must be sent back to his country with due regard to his position. The Mohammedan conquerors treated the Hindu kings differently, and when they got them once, they destroyed them without remorse. Mind you that in those days, in the times of our story, the poem says, the science of arms was not the mere use of bows and arrows at all. It was magic archery in which the use of mantras, concentration, etc. played an important part. One man could fight millions of men and burn them at will. He could send one arrow and it would rain thousands of arrows and thunder. He could make anything burn and so on. It was all divine magic. One fact is the most curious in both of these poems, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. Along with these magic arrows and all the things going on, you see the cannon already in use. The cannon is an old thing used by the Chinese and the Hindus. Upon the walls of the cities were hundreds of curious weapons made of hollow iron tubes, which filled with power and ball could kill hundreds of men. The people believed that the Chinese by magic put the devil inside a hollow iron tube, and when they applied a little fire to a hole, the devil came out with terrific noise and killed many people. So in those old days, they used to fight with magic arrows, one man being able to fight millions of others. They had their military arrangements and tactics. There were the foot soldiers termed the Pada, and then the cavalry, Turaga, and the two other divisions which the moderns have lost and given up. There were the elephant corps, hundreds and hundreds of elephants with men on their backs, formed into regiments and protected with huge sheets of iron mail. And these elephants could bear down upon the mass of the enemy. And then there were the chariots, of course. You have seen these pictures of these old chariots which were used in every country. These were the four divisions of the army in those old days. Now both the parties alike wished to secure the alliance of Krishna, but he declined to take an active part and fight in this war, but offered himself as a charioteer to Arjun and as a friend and counselor of the Pandavas, while to the Duryodhan he gave his army of mighty soldiers. Then was fought on the vast plain of Kurukshetra the great battle in which Bhishma, Drona, Karan, and the brothers of Duryodhan, with the kinsmen on both sides, and thousands of other heroes fell. The war lasted 18 days. Indeed, out of the 18 Akshohinis of soldiers, very few men were left. The death of Duryodhan ended the war in the favor of Pandavas. It was followed by the lament of Gandhari, the queen, and the widowed women, and the funerals of the deceased warriors.